Well folks, it's that time of year again. But don't worry, I'm not going to just run through a list of tools and tell you that you should buy them. This year I want to add some value. This year, I'm going to treat this one like a start better kind of video. I want to save you some money and frustration by finding the best tool for the job first go. No matter who you are, there is a woodworker in your life who is desperate for a gift. I think you know who I mean. No, not him. He's fine. And importantly, everything in this video is less than £25. That's 33 American dollars. But just know, in true Christmas video tradition, there will be a link for everything that you see in this video down in the description. So let's not waste any more time. Gift item number 1. So this one is the first tool on the list, and it is an incredibly good gift. It's small, inexpensive, and incredibly useful. When I first started out with woodworking and this channel, I was in a shed with no power, and I desperately wanted a drill press. And if any of you have seen one of my earliest videos, you'll see that what I bought instead was a failure. And since then, I haven't managed to replace it with anything that'll do the job until now. This here is a drill guide block. It's got one simple job. It takes drills from the size of 4 to 12, and it keeps them square while you're drilling. One thing to note from the get-go, if your drills are metric like mine, buy the metric one. If not, there's an imperial one too. It's a really simple bit of kit. Each one of the holes has a metal guide bushing to stop wearing, and there's markings on the sides and the ends so that you can line up the hole you want to drill. Then, when you start drilling, this will ensure you're as close as you can get to perpendicular to the piece you're drilling. Now don't get me wrong, this is not a fail-safe 100% accurate jig. It won't replace the accuracy of a pillar drill. But for a huge range of applications where close to 90 degrees is good enough, clamp this on or hold it firm and it'll do a very good job for you. Give it as a gift and the woodworker in your life will love it, because it's telling them that you understand one of the difficulties they encounter when they're woodworking. Let's crack on with the next one. This next one is an incredibly rare tool in the fact that it is one that I genuinely believe everybody could get use out of. Because let's face it, we should all be supporting our sandpaper in one way or another. And different jobs require different ways of doing it. I tend to use one of these blocks for sanding flatter surfaces and some edge profiles. And don't get me wrong, I've suggested in many videos that you can stick sandpaper to a stick, put tape across the back of it, or even glue it to itself to get the job done. And all of these work great, but you can't exactly give a popsicle stick or a tongue depressor as a gift. It's just not right. Not to mention, this is going to be something you're going to use over and over. Throughout your woodworking journey, some people may not want to make one every time. And that's where these come in handy. These are card sanders. I wouldn't necessarily use these instead of these for sanding a large flat surface, but for every other job, they're pretty good. And how you attach the sandpaper to the Velcro that's on them is determined by what you want to use them for. Because you get this fluffy back sandpaper that sticks to them really nicely when you buy one of these, you can attach it directly to the front. That way this plastic edge that has no sandpaper on it is going to protect anything you don't want sanding. Say if you're sanding a 90-degree joint to get rid of some glue squeeze out. Or if you do want to have something rough on that edge, simply fold the sandpaper over, attaching it to one side, and then you can get into some smaller grooves with these. And for many applications, this is the best tool for the job. You even get a stack of different grit sandpaper when you buy one of these. But there is a plus one, and I'll get to that in a second. See, last time I checked, this was £10, and this smaller one was £5. They give or take $10 in the US too, and that makes it a brilliant value gift. You know, for the woodworker in your life. And even if they've already got one of these, well, they can do what I do and just leave one grit on each one, save having to keep changing. Oh yeah, and the plus one. Why not accompany the gift of the card sander with a roll of fur-backed sandpaper so they can cut their own sheets when the freebies run out? That way they'll save a little bit of money too. I know it's not real fur, but you get what I mean. It attaches to Velcro. All right, I think it's time that we took a very quick moment now and we were a little bit blunt about the situation we find ourselves in. First of all, thank you for watching this far. It's much appreciated, and there's a subscribe button somewhere down there. But more importantly, I just want to double check that I know and you know that the woodworker in your life can actually be you. All right, I'm probably going to keep saying it though, okay? On with the next one. So the next recommendation on my list is a countersink bit. And this is not necessarily what you think of when I say countersink bit, but they do a fantastic job of exactly what you want them to do. No matter which style you use, countersink bits are designed to hide the screw head underneath the surface of the wood. And they do that by boring a cone shape into the wood for the screw head itself to sit in. So whether you're trying to hide it or just ensure that it's not sitting proud, you need something to do that within your woodworking arsenal. Now, since day one, these countersink bits, with the drill actually inside them, are what I've been using. And in the next video, I'm going to go into these in a lot more depth, along with plug cutters and other style countersink bits themselves. But in my opinion, this bit stands on its own purely because of the finish you get from it. And therefore, a set of these would make an incredibly good gift. But like many of these tools, there was a lot of mistakes that came along the way to lead me to this. This was the first. This is a countersink bit that looks like a mini orange juicer, with lots of cutting edges leading down into a point. I found no matter what speed you run this at, you get tear out and it leaves lots of little grooves around the hole. And it was this that led me to search again and find these. These are basically deburring or reamer bits, and I believe they started out being used mainly in metalwork. If I'm wrong on that, please pop it in the comments. The only downside that I could see from getting these from the start is that they are a little bit pricier than some of the other things you can go for, but the finish speaks for itself. Not to mention, depending on what kit you buy, you'll get 3 or 4 different sizes, and they are all very useful. And hands down, they leave the cleanest finish out of any of the countersink bits I've got, whether they've got a drill attached or not. The set I got was £15 and it's around $16 in the US. And as an aside, if you're making your own jigs using acrylic, these work better than any other countersink bit I've tried with that too. Great gift, but stick around for the next video where I go into a lot more depth, and there's a couple of interesting tools that I found recently that I think you're going to love. To ensure you don't miss that video, just check to make sure that you're subscribed. Let's move on to the next tool. This next tool is a decent upgrade to an original tool that I recommended to you guys a couple of years ago. And don't worry, if you bought the first one, it's still okay. It's just the next one's a little bit better. Now, I don't know any woodworkers who don't either own a chisel or a hand plane. Even if you're mainly a power tool woodworker, there's still a time where you need to pick up a hand plane to tidy up some edges, or even a chisel to tidy up some joints. And with that comes sharpening. And I'm not going to tell you what the best method of sharpening is, because once you get any method dialed in, it'll work for you. What I will say is I firmly believe that every sharpening job should be finished off with a strop and some polishing compound. With one of these, it only takes 10 to 15 good passes to polish up your cutting edge and remove any burrs. And with that, it's going to take sharp to super sharp. And I know, strops come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. Some people just use a piece of MDF. I like leather that doesn't have too much give, that is backed onto something that has no flex. And this, well, this was the first one that I recommended to you, and it works. For the life of me, I don't know why it's shaped like a paddle. The handle actually gets in the way, and unless you screw or clamp it down, it tends to slip across your workbench. And my last issue was that the leather was a little bit too smooth and the compound didn't bond with it enough. And that's why I upgraded to this. It does the same job, but with none of the weaknesses. You see, the leather's a little bit softer, a little bit more suede-like, so it can hold on to the compound much better. And on top of that, instead of being double-sided, you've got these lovely rubber pads on the bottom, so on your workbench, it doesn't go anywhere. For one of these in the UK, it's £16. You'll end up paying about $18 for it in the US. Now hold tight, because this gift section contains a lot of different gifts all tied together with glue. Well, not with glue, but tied together being about glue. And I'm not here to help you decide which glue bottle to use, because in truth, I've learned over time that having a few different ones is actually the best way to go. What I'm here to talk about are the accessories to help with the glue application. Now, instinctively, when you search the internet for accessories for glue, you're going to come across this silicone-based kit. And you're going to notice a lot of the things we use with glue are silicone-based because, well, glue doesn't stick to it once it's cured. These kits generally consist of a silicone brush, a silicone tray, and then a silicone spreader. But it's not that kit that I'm recommending, because I think there's better value for money. Don't get me wrong, I love the brush. I like-ish the tray, but I don't like the spreader. It's messy and I don't think it's as good as other stuff that's out there. So let me tell you the gift bundle that I would put together. This brush, £7, $7 in the US. The reason I like it is the silicone head, if you let the glue dry, you can just peel it away after use and it's clean for the next one. One small recommendation is to make sure you get all the bits out of it because they will ruin a tight glue up. So this is in. But honestly, if you feel this is too pricey for the job, just grab these silicone basting brushes. These are £1 each and will do a pretty good job. As an added tip, I would probably cut the length of the bristles in half on one like this because, well, you just don't need them. As well as this brush, I would recommend getting these very cheap small paint brushes. They come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and to be honest, they pick up where this leaves off. This isn't great for the very small box joints, for instance. When you want to get into those, you're going to need something that still has bristles. And yes, these bristles you can wash the glue off while it's still wet, but you probably won't. However, it's not all wasted because look, the handle on these being dead straight, much like your foam brushes, well, that's just a handy dowel. The next thing I'm going to suggest you put into the bundle is one of these handy silicone rollers with its own tray. So you see, you get a tray anyway, and on top of that, you get a roller for spreading glue across larger surfaces. I mean, this alone is a thoughtful gift. If you know anybody doing panel glue ups or veneering, this, although it's small, it's incredibly useful. And don't get me wrong, it's not a cheap kit at £17 or $18, but the fact that you get the tray that you can use with your brush, well, that's quite useful. Generally, for something that the woodworker in your life is going to use as much as this, I think it's worth the splurge. But if you're going to apply glue directly with a brush, which a lot of people will do for dovetails and box joints, things like that, don't tip it into the silicone tray. This will save you money, time and effort. Grab one of these all silicone food pots for £2 or 6 for £12 as the ones I've put in the description. That way you can pour your glue in, use what you're going to use, seal it off, and you'll still have it good for tomorrow. So there's your overall gift bundle for the woodworker in your life. A roller and a tray, cool silicone brush, a couple of disposable brushes and some silicone pots. All for a total of around £30. It's going to be around $33 to $35 in the US. If I get that this Christmas, well, I've already got it. But if I didn't have it and I did get it, I'd be pretty pleased. Now we're on a roll, let's get on to the next one. I'm going to call this section general stuff. These are some of the things that even a woodworker might not know that the woodworker in your life needs. Candles. They're not just for atmospheric woodworking. You can use them for many, many things. And if you buy these tea light candles, 50 for £5, they're going to last you a long time and you're not going to spend a lot of money. That's a great gift on its own. I use them on the soles of my planes. I use them to wax up my drawers so they don't stick. I use them on table saw sleds. Honestly, you'll be surprised how quickly you go through these. Oh yeah, and glue a couple of little magnets around your workshop so you can leave the tea light hanging off those magnets, ready to grab whenever you need it. I've said this one recently, so let's not dwell on it. I cannot believe that I've used blue tape for as long as I have without putting it on a tape dispenser. I can't believe I used a tape dispenser for one day before putting it on a French cleat. I can't believe there are people out there that don't think French cleat is the best form of tool storage in a workshop. But that's an argument for a completely different video. The tape dispenser, well, that's a good idea for everybody. At first glance, you may think I'm a little bit bonkers including this one. Why would you want to gift someone sheets of this nitrile cork? I know some of you will have watched my recent videos and you'll have seen me making my own tools and jigs, and you'll have seen me incorporating this. And its main application is grip without marring. It's really easy to apply to wood and it's not that expensive. So if you were to gift someone 2 or 3 sheets of this, which will set you back in the UK £5 a sheet, and in the US $10 a sheet, but it's a bigger sheet, the first thing they're going to do is open it and either straight away know what it's for, or look at you like you're 1 prawn short of a seafood salad. And that's fine. Leave them for a little while, let them go down their workshop, and soon they'll realise it's got a lot of uses. I've tried sticky rubber, cork, silicone, loads of different things, but this wins out. Whether it's bench cookies, push paddles, paddles inside the jaws of your vise, this stuff is sensational. So I'll say no more. On to the next one. Now I've left the most useful item on this list until last. This is a simple tape measure, but not all tape measures are built equally. And over the years I've accumulated quite a collection. And then when I started looking through them, I realised that none of them were perfect, and there was a few reasons for this. Some of them are too limp. Some of them are hard to read. Some of them have got different units on one side to the other. That's a bit of a bugbear of mine. And some of them don't lock. This one fails on all 4. So I went on a search for a better way with all of this in mind. A one tape measure that is the perfect gift for the woodworker in your life. And I found 3 potentials. Now, those of you in the US, you've got the Fast Cat brand, and I think that those are probably woodworkers' favourites over there. So this may not be as relevant right now, but there might be some good stuff to take away from it. This is the Fat Max, 8 metres, £18. This is the Draper, 5 metres, £7. And this is a non-brand 10 metres for £9. First of all, if you're in a workshop that is 5 metres by 4 metres like mine, yes, I've exaggerated by about half a metre on either side, but don't worry about it. You don't need a tape measure more than 5 metres long. The 10 metre one is incredibly bulky. The 8 metres is still quite heavy. The 5 metres is a really nice ergonomic size. So that's a +1 for the Draper. The reason I chose these 3 is because they all have nice wide tapes, which makes them rigid. They don't flop, and they've got a good braking system on them. This Draper, for instance, comes out and locks without you pressing anything. So you press to push it back in, which I think is the best way around for this. The Stanley Fat Max is the first one I bought many months ago before I even built the workshop. That you have to press to lock, and sadly that function isn't working perfectly on it now. They've all got sturdy clips on the end, with a clip not just on the bottom but also on the top, which gives you added versatility. But there is one of these that is an overall winner because it wins on all categories. For a very short second, it was actually this one. I love the green fluorescent numbers on a black background. That is the easiest to read out of all 3. I love the fact it's 1 unit either side, so it doesn't matter which side of the tape measure you're using if you only use imperial or if you only use metric. It locks well, it's sturdy, it's rigid. It is big, but if you got it in the 5 metres, I'm sure it would be better in your hand. However, it has one fatal flaw that means it cannot be the one that I recommend today. This. The case is made out of a hard plastic, and that I guarantee would last no more than a matter of months in my workshop. Because if there is one tool that hits the floor more often than anything else, it's a tape measure. And that's a shame. These 2 with the rubber cases, well, the Fat Max is the reason I know that that would break, because this one has fallen off the roof of the workshop and has fallen off the workbench at least 50 times. It's still going strong because they have a rubber outer casing over the plastic. The Fat Max cannot win here, but I can get past the fact that it displays both in imperial and metric because it ticks every other box, but it doesn't have anything on the bottom. And to have a clip on top and bottom, well, you'd think that it would have writing on the bottom, so if you're clipping on the top, you can still see it. But it doesn't. And that is a shame. Draper, well, the Draper does. And not only that, but it doesn't have the traditional yellow coloured tape. It's got black on white underneath and white on black on top. And if you've never tried that colour combination when you're reading your tape measure, well, you should, because it is 10 times easier than reading the black on yellow. It is a shame this didn't work because it's the only one I found that had millimetres and centimetres only on the tape. This still has inches on one side. So in future videos, you're going to hear me mixing up my measurements. 1 minute I'll talk in metric, the next in imperial. I can't help it. And as always, I can't talk about tape measures without giving you the same piece of advice I give you in every video about tape measures. Never use 2 different tape measures on the same build, because they're not all built equally. A minor discrepancy of a millimetre between one and the other can compound over a build until suddenly you're 5 to 10 millimetres off at the end and you've ruined what you're building. Use one from start to finish, and if you need to buy multiple, buy the same brand. You've got the best chance of it being the same. And always check them against each other, even with the same brand, because you just never know, and it's better to know. I kind of lost sight of the gifts for a woodworker element there. Honestly, this video could have been tools I wish I'd had from the start video, but it is that time of year. Although, don't tell anyone I filmed this in October. And, as I said before, there's another one next week for some slightly larger objects, so if you don't want to miss that, please check you're subscribed. But if you don't catch it, let me take this opportunity to say that I hope you have a wonderful festive season. And not to get too serious, but this time of year can bring some highs and with it some lows. Pressures and expectations, not too dissimilar to making things. A small gift from you to you could make all the difference. And I genuinely don't mean things that are on this list. If it brings a smile to your face, then it's worth it. At this time of year as well, there's a lot of talk about being kind to others. And while that is true, I'd like to add, be kind to yourselves in whatever you're doing. Again, just like you should when you're making. If next week's video is made, I'll pop it up there. If not, well, here's a similar one from last year. It's probably still relevant. Merry Christmas, everyone. And, as I always say, I'll see you over there. Thanks a lot.